Welcome to today's deep dive. We're going to be tackling some pretty big questions.
Oh, yeah.
The power of nature,
Yeah.
the limits of human knowledge, and I guess where we fit into the grand scheme of things.
Big stuff.
The big stuff,
Yeah.
exactly. And the source material that you send over to us dives headfirst into these themes through the ancient book of Job,
Hmm.
specifically chapters 37 through 39, where things get really interesting. We're talking storms, constellations, wild animals,
Right.
almost like a nature documentary, but directed by like a philosopher or something.
Precisely. And within these poetic descriptions, there's a profound exploration of the relationship between humanity and the divine.
Yeah. Okay, so buckle up, I guess.
Yeah.
We're about to explore the wonders of creation as described by Elihu and God himself and see what insights we can glean for ourselves today.
Great.
So let's dive right into chapter 37, where Elihu kind of sets the scene with this incredibly vivid description of a storm. It's full of thunder and lightning and wind and ice, and it's both beautiful and terrifying at the same time.
Yeah.
He even talks about how God seals the hand of every person so they can recognize his work in nature. What significance do you see in this imagery, especially considering all that Joe's going through?
Well, it's interesting that he starts with a storm because storms are often seen as symbols of chaos and destruction.
Right.
But Elihu is pointing out that even in the midst of this chaos, there's a divine order at play.
Mm.
And by sealing the hand of every person, God is forcing them to confront their own powerlessness in the face of nature's power. It's a call to recognize something greater than ourselves, even amidst suffering.
Okay, so it's not just about recognizing God's power then, but also about recognizing our own limitations.
Precisely. Elihu is setting the stage for a conversation about the vastness of creation and the limitations of human understanding, something that Job is clearly struggling with.
Yeah, for sure. And then Elihu gets even more philosophical.
Yeah.
You know, he starts to question whether the storm is for correction or for the earth or for goodness. It's like he's grappling with that age-old question, why do bad things happen to good people?
Exactly. This connects to the theological concept of theodicy, which explores, why a benevolent God would allow suffering to exist.
Right.
Elihu doesn't offer a definitive answer,
Of course.
but he raises the possibility that even storms, these seemingly destructive events, could have a purpose beyond our immediate understanding.
So he's not necessarily trying to explain away Job's suffering, but encouraging him to consider a larger perspective.
Right. And that's a crucial point because sometimes the most difficult questions don't have easy answers,
Yeah.
but wrestling with those questions can be a pathway to deeper understanding.
Okay, then that leads us to chapter 38, where things take a dramatic turn.
Yeah.
God himself speaks directly to Job out of a whirlwind.
It's an incredibly powerful moment. Imagine your Job questioning everything, and suddenly God speaks to you from this overwhelming force of nature.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. And God doesn't hold back.
Yeah.
He challenges Job right away, asking him where he was when the foundations of the earth were laid. It almost feels like he's putting Job in his place.
Well, it's more nuanced than that. I think God isn't trying to belittle Job. He's using these really powerful images to emphasize the vastness of creation and the limitations of human knowledge. It's a rhetorical strategy, meant to shift Job's perspective.
So it's not about punishment, but about expanding Job's understanding.
Exactly. God goes on to describe the wonders of nature, the sea, the dawn, the depths of the ocean, even the storehouses of snow and hail. It's like he's revealing this cosmic inventory to Job and to us as listeners. What strikes you about these descriptions?
I'm struck by the sheer scope of it all,
Right.
It makes our everyday worries seem so small in comparison.
And I think that's part of God's point. He's inviting Job to consider the bigger picture, to see his suffering in the context of the entire cosmos.
So it's not about dismissing Job's pain, but about offering him a wider lens through which to view it.
Precisely. And that wider lens can be both humbling and comforting.
Yeah.
Humbling because it reminds us of how much we don't know, and
Yeah.
comforting because it suggests that there's a greater order at work even when we can't see it.
And God doesn't stop there. He moves from these grand cosmic descriptions to something much more specific, the stars and constellations.
Right.
He asks Job if he can control the stars, tie up the Pleiades, or guide the bear constellations. What do you make of this shift in focus?
It's fascinating, isn't it? It's like God is saying, look, you can't even control the stars, these distant celestial bodies. How can you possibly claim to understand the complexities of human suffering?
Mm.
It's a powerful way of challenging Job's assumptions.
So again, it's not just about God's power over nature, but also about the limits of our own understanding.
Exactly. And by highlighting those limits, God is creating a space for something else to emerge, a sense of awe and wonder.
And then he goes even further, bringing up the instinctual wisdom of animals, ravens finding food lions hunting their prey.
Yeah.
I'm struck by the shift from the vast cosmos to these very specific animal abilities.
Right.
He focuses on the horse's strength, the hawk's flight. It's almost like he's prompting us, the listeners, to consider, where does this power and ability come from?
Hmm.
Is it something humans can ever truly replicate or control?
That's a profound question. And I think the text is suggesting that there's a wisdom and a power inherent in creation itself, a wisdom that goes beyond human understanding or control.
So we're seeing this theme of humility emerge again.
Exactly, humility before the vastness of creation, before the mysteries of the natural world, and ultimately before God himself.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. Storms, constellations, and now animals. It feels like we're building towards something. What do you think is the overarching message God is trying to convey through these vivid descriptions?
Well, I think he's laying the groundwork for a deeper understanding of the relationship between humanity and the divine. He's using the natural world as a mirror to reflect back to Job and to us the limitations of our human perspective. And in doing so, he's inviting us to embrace a more expansive view of reality, one that acknowledges both our limitations and the awe-inspiring power of the Creator.
So it's not just about Job's suffering or the power of nature, but about something much bigger, our place in the grand scheme of things.
Exactly, and I think that's a message that continues to resonate today, even for those of us who may not be facing the same hardships as Job.
Absolutely. So we've explored the storm, the stars, and even the animal kingdom.
Mm.
Where do we go from here? What other wonders of creation does God reveal to Job?
Well, that's where we'll pick up in part 2 of our deep dive. We'll delve even deeper into God's speech, exploring the specific examples of animals he highlights and the profound lessons they hold for us today. Welcome back to our deep dive into the book of Job. Last time we left off with God challenging Job's perspective through these vivid descriptions of the natural world.
Right, like it was a whirlwind tour of creation, from the vastness of the cosmos to the intricate behaviors of animals.
Exactly. And now we're going to zoom in on some specific creatures that God highlights.
Okay.
Starting with the wild donkey and the ostrich. He describes them in detail, emphasizing their wildness, their untamed nature.
It's interesting how he focuses on these creatures that are known for being difficult to tame or control. It's almost like he's saying to Job, look, you can't even control a wild donkey, let alone the forces that govern the universe.
Right, and there's a sense of freedom in their wildness, a freedom from human constraints and expectations.
Yeah, this one really stood out to me. God says the ostrich abandons her eggs to the earth and treats her young harshly as if they were not hers. It seems so counterintuitive to our understanding of maternal instincts. What do you make of that?
It's a powerful image that challenges our human perceptions of what's natural or right. We tend to project our own values onto the natural world. But God is reminding Job that creation operates according to a different set of rules.
So it's not about judging the ostrich's behavior, but about recognizing that there's a wisdom at play that we may not fully grasp.
Exactly. And this wisdom isn't necessarily rational or logical from a human perspective, but it's an instinctual wisdom, a way of being that's perfectly suited to the ostrich's environment and survival.
It's like God is asking us to expand our definition of intelligence beyond what we can understand with our human minds.
Precisely. And that expansion of understanding can be a humbling experience. It forces us to acknowledge that we're not the center of the universe, that there are other ways of being that are just as valid and important as our own.
And from the untamed wildness of the donkey and the seemingly harsh behavior of the ostrich, God shifts his focus to the horse. And wow, what a description. He paints this vivid picture of the horse's strength and majesty.
Yes, it's a powerful image of raw power and untamed energy.
He asks Job, do you give the horse his might? Do you clothe his neck with a mane? He even describes the horse going into battle, snorting in the face of danger, unafraid of the sword. What message do you think he's conveying through this imagery?
I think it's a celebration of the horse's inherent power and beauty qualities that are given, not created by humans. It's another example of God showcasing the wonders of creation and inviting Job and us as listeners to appreciate the diversity and magnificence of the natural world.
It's interesting how God uses these very specific details, the horse's snorting its mane, its fearlessness in battle, to make his point. It's not just about the horse's strength in general, but about these specific qualities that make it so awe-inspiring.
Exactly. And that attention to detail reinforces the idea that every aspect of creation is intentional,
Yeah.
even the things that we might overlook or take for granted.
It's like God is saying, look closer, pay attention. There's beauty and wonder everywhere if you open your eyes to see it.
And that attention to detail also highlights the contrast between human creation and divine creation. We might be able to build machines that mimic the horse's strength,
Right.
but we can't replicate the essence of what makes the horse so unique and powerful.
So it's a reminder of our limitations, but also an invitation to appreciate the artistry of the Creator.
Absolutely. And speaking of artistry, God then turns his attention to two majestic birds of prey, the hawk and the eagle.
Go.
He asks Job, is it by your understanding that the hawk soars stretching his wings toward the south? It's a rhetorical question, of course, but what's the deeper meaning behind it?
I think it's another example of God pointing to something that is beyond human control or comprehension. We can observe these natural phenomena, but we can't fully replicate or explain them. Take flight, for instance. We've built airplanes, but we can't truly soar like a hawk or an eagle. There's something almost mystical about their ability to navigate the skies.
Yes, and that sense of mystery points to the limits of human knowledge, and the vastness of the divine God is reminding Job and us that there are forces at work in creation that are beyond our grasp.
It's interesting how he describes the eagle making its nest on high, on a rocky cliff, an inaccessible place. It evokes a sense of awe and wonder, but also recognition of the eagle's untamed nature. We may admire it from afar,
Yeah.
but we can't truly control or possess it.
Right. It speaks to the wildness and freedom that exist in nature, even in creatures that might seem fierce or dangerous. And it reminds us that there are still parts of the world that are beyond our reach that operate according to a different set of rules.
And then there's that chilling detail about the eagle. From there, it spies out the prey, its eyes see it from afar. Its young ones feast on blood, and where the slains are, there it is. It's a reminder that beauty and brutality often coexist in the natural world.
It's the cycle of life and death, a cycle that's essential for the balance of the ecosystem.
Right.
And while it might seem harsh from our human perspective, it's a reminder that there's a greater purpose at play, a purpose that transcends our limited understanding.
So we've gone from the wild donkey and the ostrich to the powerful horse and the majestic eagle. What's the connecting thread here? What's the overarching message God is trying to convey through these specific examples?
I think he's highlighting the diversity and complexity of creation and reminding Job that even the seemingly smallest or most insignificant creatures are part of a grand design.
And by showcasing the unique abilities and instincts of these animals, he's also highlighting the limits of human control and understanding.
Exactly. It's a call to humility and wonder, an invitation to appreciate the beauty and mystery of the world around us, even in its most untamed forms.
And maybe that appreciation can lead to a deeper sense of connection with the Creator.
Absolutely. By recognizing the divine spark in all of creation, we begin to see ourselves as part of a much larger web of life, interconnected and interdependent.
So we've explored the storm, the stars, the wild donkey, the ostrich, the horse, the hawk, and the eagle. What other insights can we glean from God's speech? What other lessons does he have for Job? And perhaps even more importantly for us.
That's where we'll pick up in part 3 of our deep dive. We'll explore how Job responds to God's powerful words and what lessons we can take away from this ancient story for our own lives today.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the book of Job. We witnessed Job's struggle with suffering, heard Elihu's philosophical insights, and been swept away by God's whirlwind tour of creation.
Yeah, from the vastness of the cosmos to the specific wonders of the animal kingdom, it's been quite a journey.
It really has. But now we arrive at kind of a crucial moment. How does Job respond to this awe-inspiring, almost overwhelming encounter with God?
Well, it's not like he suddenly understands everything or his suffering magically disappears.
Right. His life hasn't changed, but it feels like something within him has shifted.
Exactly. Job doesn't offer any grand pronouncements or theological arguments. Instead, we see this profound statement of humility. In chapter 42, he says, I had heard of you by the hearing of the ear, but now my eye sees you. Therefore, I despise myself and repent in dust and ashes.
There's such raw honesty in those words. It's like he's admitting that his previous understanding of God was limited, almost theoretical. But now, having encountered the divine in this powerful way, he's humbled.
I think that's the key takeaway for us as listeners. Sometimes we can get caught up in intellectual debates about faith or try to fit God into a neat little box. But Job's experience reminds us that true encounter with the divine can be transformative, even unsettling.
It challenges our assumptions, stretches our understanding, and ultimately can lead to a deeper, more authentic faith.
And it's in that space of humility where we recognize the limits of our own knowledge and control that we can truly begin to appreciate the vastness and mystery of the divine.
It's not about having all the answers, but about being open to the questions and trusting in something bigger than ourselves.
Precisely. And I think that's where Job finds his peace, not in a resolution to his suffering, but in a surrender to the wisdom and power of the Creator.
And that surrender isn't about weakness or giving up. It's about recognizing that we're not in control of everything and finding a sense of freedom in that release.
It's about trusting that even in the midst of the storms of life, even when we don't understand, there's a purpose and a plan that goes beyond our limited human perspective.
And that can be a source of immense strength and resilience, even in the face of overwhelming challenges.
Job's story reminds us that the journey of faith is often marked by both doubt and certainty, by questions and glimpses of understanding. It's a journey that requires us to wrestle with the big questions, to confront our limitations, and to ultimately surrender to something greater than ourselves.
And that's the beauty of it, isn't it? It's not a passive acceptance, but an active engagement with the mystery of life and the divine.
Exactly. It's a lifelong exploration, a continuous unfolding of understanding.
So as we conclude our deep dive into these powerful chapters of Job, what do you think is the most important takeaway for our listeners?
I think it's the invitation to approach life with a sense of awe and wonder, to look beyond our limited perspectives and to embrace the mystery that surrounds us.
And to recognize that even in the midst of suffering and uncertainty, there's a divine presence at work, guiding us, shaping us, and ultimately leading us toward the deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us.
And perhaps just as God revealed himself to Job through the wonders of creation, we might find glimpses of the divine in the everyday miracles that surround us.
Beautifully said. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the book of Job. We hope it sparked your curiosity and left you with some profound questions to ponder. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep seeking the divine spark in every corner of creation.